are glad to have two presenters here with us this morning. The first is Matthias Ayeye. Matthias is a geophysicist and an environmental management expert. He has several projects on environmental assessment studies across Nigeria, including environmental audit, environmental protection and rehabilitation program, and other studies for Richflood International Limited. With his several years of experience in the environmental sector, he will be sharing with us what individuals and organizations need to know about sustainable procurement and how they can go about achieving this. Our second presenter for today is Mary Besabet. Mary is the marketing manager, Africa at Jusdiggit, Rotterdam, South Holland. With years of working from startup to corporate companies, Mary has grown to be a diverse, creative, and solution-minded marketer. She worked as a brand manager in achieving targets, revamping brands, and delivering on our objectives, which has made her a stronger marketer. In 2017, she had the honor of being awarded as the best sales support. In this workshop, she'll be shedding light on sustainable procurement and circular economy and how governments, agencies, and organizations can go about achieving this as well. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us today. Matthias, you are welcome. Over to you for your presentation.
Good morning, viewers, and thank you for this opportunity for this presentation with our topic, Sustainable Procurement and Circular Economy. We know all procurement has some form or level of impact on the environment that needs to be minimized to ensure sustainable practices. Many environmental impacts occur before a good or services is procured. For example, we have resource extraction, we have manufacturing, transportation, storage, and in the process of all this, the environment is highly impacted. According to the United Nations Global Markets, procurement is called sustainable when it integrates requirements, specifications, and criteria that are compatible and in favor of the protection of the environment, of progress, and in support of economic development, namely by seeking resource efficiency, improving the quality of products and services, and ultimately optimizing costs. Over the years, sustainable procurement has gotten so many definitions. Now, through sustainable procurement, organizations use this opportunity to use their own buying power to give a signal to the market in favor of sustainability and base their choice of goods and services on these three considerations we have before us. The economic consideration, where we talk about the best value for money, price, quality, availability, and functionality. It also looks at environmental consideration, which many at times can be called green procurement. And this looks basically on the impact on the environment of that same product or services that we are seeking for. And the third is on the social consideration and the effects of purchasing decision on issues such as poverty eradication, international equity distribution of resources, labor condition and human. Now, ensuring the lowest environmental and most positive social impact of procurement does not only build on commitment related to the environment, but it also builds on social or labor issues. Now, it also comes or serves as a preventive mechanism for the purchasing organization to mitigate and manage the reputational risk associated with environmental damages or social exploitation cases that would occur throughout its own supply chain. Over time, we've come to understand that sustainability have a lot of messages have been out regarding sustainability. Now, it's important for us to know that every sustainability message has the circular economy at its heart. Hence, some establishments prefer this term circular procurement, where their choices at the outset of a decision-making process ensures that materials are still suitable at their end of life for repair or refurbishment and reuse. Now, since April 2017, sustainable procurement has been addressed. There was an address and a release under a global standard, and that is the ISO 20400. Most of the time we say ISO 2400, some will say 20,400. Now, it defines sustainable procurement as procurement that has the most positive environmental, social, and economic impact on a whole life basis. Now, it aims to improve harmonized international guidelines that can be applied universally and in sufficient detail in order to help organizations to develop and implement sustainable practices of purchases and policies. Now, this ISO 2400 is globally the first international standard for sustainable procurement, and it basically acknowledges sustainable procurement as a key aspect of social responsibility and aims to provide what we just discussed. Now, this standard comes to complement ISO 26000, which is on guidance on social responsibility. In comparison to other ISO standards, ISO 2400 is not a certification standard, meaning that public or private organizations cannot become ISO 2400 certified. It's rather a guidance standard designed as a useful reference point for establishing up some sustainable procurement indicators as we have before us. And these indicators are what we are looking at. And these indicators are what we have before us right now. The indicators are broken down into various sections, where we have the environment, we have social, we have economic, and we have the generic. These indicators, looking at the environmental aspect, it basically talks about prevention of pollution, where requirements for corporate environmental policies or an environmental management system. When we talk about the environmental management system, we're talking about ISO 14001 or its equivalent. It also talks about sustainable resource use. And when we say sustainable resource use, we are looking at a requirement for on design and production to use recycled or biodegradable materials. Going further on the environment, we look at the climate change mitigation and adaptation, where this brings to us requirements to report regularly and publicly on greenhouse gas emissions. Also on the environmental indicator, we have protection of the environment, biodiversity, and restoration of natural habitat, where this requires for us to promote legal and sustainable agriculture, fishery, forestry. Going further, we also have the social angle, the social indicator, where it talks about the human rights and labor issues, inclusion of persons with disability, gender issues, social health and well-being. Also the economic indicators that looks at whole life cycle costs, local community and SMEs, promoting sustainability. Now these indicators actually have been given us by the United Nations Global Market for us to understand that these indicators are what we should use in assessing and understanding that sustainable procurement is actually being implemented and is achieving the goal for which it was created. This takes us to the sustainable procurement pillars. Sustainable procurement pillars. The indicators talked about environmental, social, and economic. Now, the pillars also are built on these three angles. And according to the United Nations Office for Project Services, looking at sustainable procurement pillar on the social angle, it talks about human development, education, human labor rights, poverty and equality, and the rest. Going to the economic angle, it talks about life cycle costing, total costing of ownership, economic development. The environmental angle talks of preservation of natural resources, ecosystem and biodiversity, reduction of ecological footprint. Now, this looking at the indicators, looking at the pillars, this put together makes us understand that sustainable procurement harps on the need for social, economic, and environmental consideration. And that brings us to another angle where looking at businesses, companies, coming deep into these three areas, we'll now take this whole information into the PECB's description of what sustainable management should be like. And this takes us into environmental performance indicators, economic performance indicators, and the social performance indicators. Now, if we look at this, compare with the pillars and the indicators we earlier looked at, it still drives home the same thing, that waste generation for the environmental performance indicator, waste generation, waste recycling, greenhouse gas emission, water usage, and the likes are to be critically looked at. And this also helps us to understand that the environmental aspect of the sustainable procurement is actually being affected. The second is economic performance indicators, where we talk about the supply chain costs. And the third, looking at social performance indicators, we talk about the human rights, the labor practices, gender diversity, harassment, and others. Now, this makes us understand that sustainable sustainable procurement in essence, has to be holistic, has to be encompassing in the sense that environmental, economic, and social factors must be thoroughly considered and encouraged for these practices to be put in place. Now, we're going further to look at the benefits. Why are all this? Now, we also still see that the benefits, the potential benefits from effectively applying sustainable procurement to the economy also boils down to three potential benefits. That's now we're having the fourth now: economic, environmental, social, and regulatory. Like we earlier said, economic, that's talking about finance. If we can bring in sustainable procurement, it will help us in terms of cost reduction. And while cost reduction is the most common financial benefits of implementing sustainable procurement, organizations can reap greater financial advantage through attracting investment and improving their brand image and reputation. Now that's for the economic. Now on the environmental angle, becoming more resource efficient establishments, individuals to demonstrate their commitment to reducing their environmental impact. Now on the social angle, sustainable procurement can give rise to and help spread social benefits across the supply chain. It also encourages the economic engagement of vulnerable groups, advances human rights, and can help spur uptake of innovative products. Now, on the regulatory angle, regulations are frequently updated or they are replaced. And international organizations must be proactive. Now, the international organization, local organization, individual, establishments in general must be proactive to maintain compliance, and in effectively practicing sustainable procurement, it will help us be proactive because sustainable procurement ensures a lot of planning, a lot of on-the-ground work before it is executed. This now makes us understand, after understanding the potential benefit, now we look at how can we implement this sustainable procurement. Now we will be taking, using the ISO guideline for it. It talks about fundamental, policy and strategy, the enablers, and procurement process. Now these are the whenever we want to implement sustainable procurement. The first, looking at fundamentals, talks about exploring the drivers for implementing sustainable procurement. In this, the first step for any organization seeking to implement sustainable procurement, in line with ISO 2400, is to explore their unique set of drivers for doing so. This is an important step because these drivers will help inform the sustainable procurement priorities. That is risk management, where customers' expectation, legislation and regulation, organizational, ethic, public policies are put into play. And security of supply chain is also considered under the risk management. And it also brings to understanding competitive advantages, where personal leadership, investors' confidence, stakeholders' expectation, and workers, engaged workers are also looked at. And the third, it talks about under these fundamentals, the cost optimization, where the economic value creation, innovation, and long-term suppliers' commitment is critically looked at. This takes us to the next. After the fundamental, we have the policy and strategy. And when we say policy and strategy, this helps to create a sustainable procurement strategy. Now, having successfully put forward a business case to integrate sustainability in the procurement process, now it behoves for the top management. They should then seek to integrate organizational sustainability objective into the procurement policy and strategy. And that will now help go into the next, which is the enabler that helps to organize the procurement functions towards sustainability. Now, during this stage, an organization should set sustainability priorities within the procurement function to ensure that activities undertaken will result in the most impactful outcome. Now, ISO 2400 has set out an interactive process for transforming strategy into operational priorities. And some of these approaches that have been created are category approach, suppliers approach, sustainability issue approach. Now, once these approaches have been set, it takes us to the next, the procurement process properly. And that's where we embed sustainability priorities into the day-to-day procurement process. Now, in this case, it's more like the final step in aligning with the principles of ISO 2400. Now, this involves the day-to-day procurement activities to be embedded, the sustainable procurement priorities to be embedded into the day-to-day activities. And this will involve integrating sustainability consideration and priorities into the procurement of goods and services, using existing procurement processes. Using existing procurement processes. Now, organizations, establishments should also consider the sustainability aspect of supplier selection when awarding contracts to preferred suppliers. Now, sustainability should also be integrated into contract management, and a culture of continual review and learning from the contract should be implemented, and lessons from which should be applied in the future sourcing will be considered. This now takes us to the relationship between sustainable procurement and circular economy. Now, according to ISO, a circular economy is one which is restorative or regenerative. Instead of the buy, use, throw, the idea, that we have presently, more like looking at the linear form of economy we have, because in our today's throwaway society, we have this linear model that is to make, use, and discard. And this is depleting not just the resources of the earth or the planet, but also it's depleting our pockets, resources from our pockets, especially with the present economic situation. Now, the solution to this is the circular economy, that is bringing in sustainable procurement to help propel a circular economy where nothing is wasted. Rather, it gets reused or transformed. And this is where manufacturers also design products to be reusable. I'll give an example where we have things like electronic devices being designed in such a way that they are easier to repair. And also by recycling plastic into pellets or making new plastic products. We know what it is these days when we talk about waste. When we talk about waste. Now, the relationship aims to change the paradigm. It aims to change the entire paradigm. That's having a paradigm shift in relation to the linear economy we presently operate on by limiting environmental impacts and waste of resources, as well as increasing efficiency at all stages of product economy. Now, the image we have before us is that of a refuse dump, where the refuse dump, I think 99.9% of what we have here is made up of plastics. Now, recycling this will help us build what we call the circular economy. Now, if we have to collect part of the processes, part of the structures, designing, because this is what the outcome of our linear economy as we have it today. The outcome of linear economy that we presently have, where we manufacture, we use, and we discard. This is what brings what we have, and this pollutes our environment. Now, a lot of places we have these plastics in the seas, in the ocean, and they are already destroying aquatic organisms. Now, the aspect or the mentality of having a circular economy is that this procurement we make that are sustainable, once we use them in our economy and discard, instead of discarding them, it helps, we reuse them, we recycle them. Now, having this image before us, if these are collected, they can be sent. The next image we will be seeing is for what this plastic can be reused for. Now, instead of companies and organizations going to source for raw materials to reproduce these PET bottles, what is collected from the image we earlier saw can be sent to these companies, and they can be used as raw materials to reproduce these PET bottles we see. Because the world as we have it today is the rate of pollution going around in the world today is enormous. And the environment is highly being degraded because of humans' desire, humans' want, and human activities. Now, it is important for us to understand that we should make a paradigm shift through sustainable procurement and enable a circular economy so that we will move from the linear economy we have to a circular economy. Now we have, with the diagram we have before us, we have the raw materials, production, use, and non-recyclable waste. A lot of us are familiar with this. It cuts across all organizations, all sectors, most countries of the world. Now, so some countries, they are presently encouraging the reuse economy, where some of these wastes are recycled to production. And at the end of the day, they still boil down that we still have non-recyclable waste. But with sustainable procurement, the raw materials that will be gotten for production will ensure that if sustainable and they meet all sustainability criteria and guidelines, they will help us to go into the third image we have on our diagram. They will help into going to production. We use them, and instead of discarding them, it goes back to production. Like the image we had seen before, the plastic waste. Instead of us discarding this thing in the refuse bin, we segregate them so that once they are being collected, they are taken back for recycling. And that gives us a clear image of the next image we will be seeing. That's the circular economic benefit. It's a complete circle, where we have it helps us have a raw material of consideration and innovations, because for us to be able to be sustainable and have a circular economy, we need to be innovative. We need to be highly innovative in converting some of this waste into production and ensure that these products that are being produced are durable. And this will give us a lot of jobs. It will create jobs because the innovations, people will come up with ideas, and these ideas will bring in a lot of job opportunities, and efficiency will come in, and one serious impact of a reduction of GHG, that's global greenhouse gas emissions, will be highly reduced. So we have the CO2 emission reductions coming into play. So it becomes a complete circle, and the R's involved in waste management comes in. The reuse, remanufacture, recycle, and reduce comes into being. But at the end of the day, we will still have some form of waste that can come forth. But this waste that will be coming forth will be negligible or will be very minimal. And that takes us to what's encouraged for us today. Now, because in a circular economy, we will treat our surroundings responsibly by preventing, to the basic example now, preventing litters on the streets. Now, a circular economy above all leads to more innovation, like we have seen, economic growth at industries, business level, and at all spheres of life. And it helps us to ensure that the environment is safe, the environment is free, and we, the humans, who depend highly on this, can live, because the humans depend entirely on the environment. But the environment can make do without us. But we as humans cannot do with the environment. And with that, we now draw to conclusion that in a truly sustainable circular economy,
Thank you so much, Matthias, for that wonderful and noteworthy presentation. I got that a conclusion: to achieve a truly sustainable circular economy, consumption and production practices will need to change together completely. Thank you so much. It was quite an informative one. We actually received a couple of questions during the course of your presentation, but we will take them after the second presentation. And for our participants, if you still have questions you want to ask the presenter, keep forwarding them to the chat box, and then our presenters will address them appropriately after the second presenter is done with our presentation. I will now invite Mary for our presentation. Mary is our second presenter for the day. So I call on Mary now to take our presentation. The stage is yours, Mary. Please go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see my screen? Can everybody see my?
Yes, we can see very well.
Okay.
You can hear you loud and clear. Can go ahead with your presentation.
Perfect. Yeah, really nice to meet everyone here. Yeah, like I said earlier, I come from a small organization called Jusdiggit. We're located in the Netherlands, but also a lot of our projects are focused in Africa, and I'll explain why and why and what you can expect. This is a very small, short video about Jusdiggit. Normally, the connection is a bit difficult to play videos, but I've incorporated it just in case. So at the end of this presentation, I will share a WeTransfer link with all of you so that you can look at it in your own computers, which is a lot easier, I think, because if I play the video, it will be a bit challenging. So where are we? The current situation. So we have a very huge global desertification happening around the world. And as you can see, all of those areas are becoming more and more desertic. Obviously, deserts are needed to sort of have a good balance on the ecosystem. But the challenge always comes when one outweighs the other, which is when our greener land and our fertile soil becomes desertified and is no longer usable. And that's the kind of challenge that we're facing. But of course, we also believe that this is not a one man's problem. This is not a one country problem. This is everyone's challenge. And we can only achieve this if we work together, which is why we believe that we're all in this together. So we at Jusdiggit have one very precise saying, and we live by this word every single day, which is if we can warm up the earth, we can definitely cool it down. And that stands true today. So let's look at the solution. So the solution is basically bringing back vegetation. So nature-based solutions are 37% of the solution for climate change. If you think, so let's think in the most optimistic, most possible, beautiful world. Everybody stops having negative emissions on the environment. Everybody changes to sustainable items such as electric cars. There's nothing that can no longer have any negative emission into the world. The CO2 that we currently have will not be gone. It will still be there. We just add this new technology. Technology helps us to reduce the emissions. It does not take away the emissions that's already in the air. What actually does that is a very simple, old, ancient technique called plants, because they need the CO2. And that's why we believe that the solution always comes from the ground. It comes from Mother Earth. So bringing back vegetation is the solution and is one of the pivot moments in our lives where we all have to contribute one way or the other in everything that we do. And please do not get me wrong, using sustainable technology is definitely a very, very big key solution to fighting climate change. But also, let's also bring back the vegetation, and then with the combination of those two, we're able to have a long-lasting effect on our environment. So this is a very simple example of the picture that you can see. It's literally less than 1 meter apart, but you see the ground with the vegetation and the ground without vegetation. The heat difference. And yeah, basically plants are the cool shelters of our planet, and that's quite evident looking at this. So our focus is Africa. Why? Because Africa has the youngest population. People are eager to make our continent green. People are eager to leave a positive environment and a positive land and a positive example for for their children. So if you look at the median age of Africa, it's about 19 years old, which is a very young population. And with youth comes the power of change. So that's why we focus on Africa, is because we believe that the youth hold the power to restore and regenerate the mistakes that our forefathers and us have done. So we create very simple methods that allows the vegetation to come back, which is, for example, method one is rainwater harvesting. So by breaking the top dry, dead layer of the soil, and you create a pathway for the rain to be accumulated. So when the rain comes, it no longer floods over the dry soil, but it actually starts infiltrating into the ground. With that, you have vegetation coming back that are already in the ground, but they're looking for, or they need the perfect climate for them to sprout again. So we use rainwater harvesting as one of our tools. We also create bunds. So we call them earth smiles because we do believe that they have the shape of a smile. And this is basically, we do this mainly in Kenya. This is an ancient technique that we have found in Kenya that we've seen that it has a tremendous impact in bringing back vegetation. So what you see, all those small smiley faces are the bunds. So when the rain comes, the water will no longer wash over the land, but it will infiltrate into the small bunds. And then what you see is that the bunds starts growing small vegetation. And then through time, as you can see, the vegetation starts spreading. I think this is a very good time lapse that will show you. So this is how the land was when we find it. And then you see that the bunds that have been dug, it retains more water than the external area. And you see the vegetation coming back. You see that the vegetation now is only in the bunds that were created, but then through time, it starts spreading around and the whole area is completely covered in green. So you go back at the same time of the year before, it's still dry, but then you still have vegetation, and those vegetation naturally regenerates on their own. So this is why we don't plant, we don't do the actual planting, because this vegetation is already in the ground. So we don't want to introduce any foreign plant or any foreign tree that may not work very, very well with the other ecosystem or with the other plants in the area. What we do is just we let the nature-based local plants to sprout out without us planting anything foreign in the meantime. In Kenya, currently, we've dug more than 145,000 bunds, and those bunds continue as we speak. So as you can see, this is a very small scale. This is less than 6,000 bunds. So just to show you the overall look. So then this is what happens once the rainy season is there, and then you would have vegetation across borders. The second method is called Kisiki Hai, which that we are currently executing in Tanzania. This is also a technique that we've gathered from the local community there. Kisiki Hai has been there since forever, but people don't, a lot of the times, a lot of cultures and a lot of key information, key education from our forefathers get lost through different generations. And what we try to do with Jusdiggit is try to find those techniques that actually were effective, but do for multiple reasons that are no longer being executed by the youth. So what we do is we took the Kisiki Hai system that was practiced back in the days. So Kisiki Hai is very simple. So back in the days, they would chop off all of the trees so that, they would have a clean farm. And during the occupation time, a lot of the suppressors used to say a clean farm is a good farm. So which means that all of the farmers have to cut down all of the trees so that their farm is clean and nice, which was actually a very bad contribution to the environment. So what we do is that whenever those trees sprout back again, they have too many branches. So all of the energy and all of the food gets dispersed to 99 different branches, and it will never grow back to the big full tree that it used to be. So this is where Kisiki Hai comes into play. what they do is that the farmers will be able to see which trees and which branches are the most strongest. So they will pick 2 or 3 of the strongest branches, and they will cut down, which is called pruning. They will cut down all the extra branches so that all the energy, all the food, and everything from the root goes straight into those 2 or 3 strong stems. And then what you have is within 3 to 5 years, you will be able to grow it back into a full-blown tree as it used to be. If you don't do that, what you end up having is our small shrubs that never grows into a full tree, but then their lifespan and their CO2 emission and their strength and the resistance to diseases is quite low. But if you have a big tree, obviously, then you know the effect of that. And this is actually personally, this is my personal favorite, which is the grass seed banks. This is a very simple idea that we've incorporated in Kenya. Basically, I don't know how well you know, but the Maasai women are not allowed to own any properties. They're not allowed to have any income of their own. Basically, their existence pretty much depends on the willingness and the givingness of a man. And this project actually empowers the Maasai women. So what we've done is that we've given them a piece of land where they can grow their seed, the grass seed. And when those grass seeds are big, then they can collect all the seeds. And those seeds are used for cattle and for animal feed, which they can sell, and then they can earn the money. And with this story, they were able to create a group of women coming together, and they would be able to pay for their children's school fees. They were able to start small, kitchenware rental, because all of the money they received, they invested it back on themselves, and they have a small rental companies where they can rent, like for a wedding or for a funeral, they can rent pots and pans and anything needed for cooking purposes. They were able to start a small beads, the beautiful necklaces that they wear. They were able to reinvest on themselves, and they were actually bringing and growing their income. But at the same time, they're regreening their land, because they're taking care of the land so that the seeds can actually sprout. So basically, we empower women to be able to be the solution of a greener planet that we hope to see. So as you can see, on the right-hand side, you would see the grass seed banks. And then on the left side, well, that's basically how the land was before the Maasai women started taking care of it. And we hope to grow this project step by step. So what are the effects that we've seen? So far we've seen increased biodiversity. So we see a healthy ecosystem coming back. We've seen animals that we haven't seen for a long time coming back, the giraffes. It's going back to the nature where it once was, and that's really beautiful to see the transition. The support of the livelihood, so the women and the men are contributing equally for their households. Water is more available because of the bunds that we dig. There's more rain. That means there's a circular, positive circular climate that's happening, where they have more frequent rains and more timely rains, and then their vegetation is growing back. And because of their vegetation, then they're able to get more environmentally friendly rain system. And then, of course, regional climate. So when you start growing these projects, you also affect the regions, and then also you're reversing climate change. So by scaling up, we activate through local farmers. Those local farmers become the ambassadors of their own destiny and of their community, where they go around teaching people how to do the simple techniques and reminding them that, the benefit, you don't immediately see it. Some could take less than a year, some could take more than a year. So their job, the local farmers, are able to encourage each other to keep striving to make the tools effective. We do a lot of communication. We do roadshows where we take, simple educational videos where we're teaching the local community on how to practice this simple techniques. We do some music, we do some entertainment, so that we don't only talk about your land is degraded, but we also celebrate those champion farmers who are able to overcome the challenges. We also do out-of-home, like billboards, as you can see. And then we also have a project called the Rain Dance, which is basically you have the Netherlands, you have Tanzania, and you have Kenya coming together at the same time with a big concert at the same time where each of them can see each other, and they just basically celebrate regreening, celebrate Mother Earth. And this is where you create a lot of awareness, teachings for students, and you have the community, you have the local celebrities interacting with the local community to make a positive change and create awareness. So how can you dig in? So on June 5th, the United Nations will be launching the UN decade. Basically, the coming decade is the most crucial time of our planet's survival at this point. These are the 10 years that we have left to be able to reverse all the climate damage that we've done. And those are the most crucial 10 years that we are facing. And because of this, the UN has launched a global initiative called the UN Decade, which Jusdiggit is a very proud partner of. And basically, we do different kind of communication to raise awareness. So we have one documentary that's launching now on National Geographic. I highly recommend it. It's on the 4th of June. It's called The Grand African Green Up. So the Grand African Green Up is, I don't know how many of you are aware, but Africa has actually pledged to restore more than 120 million hectares of land by 2030. So this is a very big initiative. So to make this initiative effective and happen, they've created the AFR 100 forum, which the AFR 100 will be striving and making this idea concretely happen. And we've developed a documentary basically explaining what people can do and how they can be the positive influence within their community and the simple things that you can do. So you get to meet different local heroes from different countries, from a journalist who writes about the environment and how people can make a difference, to a teacher who wants to educate her students. Everybody has a big role to play in restoring our ecosystem. We also have another initiative called Stream to Regreen. So I know we all love to listen to music. And again, I mean, I don't think there's any nation in this planet that can defeat the Nigerian awesomeness in music. So we have an initiative called Stream to Regreen, where we work with different artists where they can donate their tracks, and then their tracks will be used all of the income from that track will be donated to restoring degraded land. And basically, if you listen to 25 music either on YouTube or on Spotify, then we're able to regreen 1 square meters of land every time. So this is, and our first music is going to be launched by Don Diablo and Ty Dollar Sign, which we will be launching this June. But they actually created a whole new track saying, is it too much to ask? This music will be launched on the 24th, and we're very excited about it. So basically, currently we're reaching 8 of the UN's SDGs. But the simplest thing is, how can you do and what can you do to contribute in creating a sustainable, greener climate, whether if it's for your work or whether if it is for your personal life? And the simple answer is, there's always something that someone can do to make a positive impact. If you look at the transportation system, that already, well, within the US, it already contributes to more than 29% of the CO2 emissions. And that is a huge number that cannot be denied, and it's growing every year. So if you look at what can I do as an organization, make a conscious decision, make a decision that not only profits the company, but at the same time profits the planet. When you use preferred partners as suppliers, make sure that you vet them not only on the quality of the product, but also on their quality towards the environment. make that the benchmark where every organization and every company is held liable for all of their production and everything they put out into this world, so that they make a healthy choice for the environment and for themselves because you're pushing them to. This is not a one-man's war, but this is a mankind war that we have to be able to win together by regreening our planet and making sure that we make a healthy choices that better fits the environment. And then at the same time, you as a person, what can you do? Have more vegetation around your house. Make sure that what you buy is properly sourced. That is not the result of, how to say, deforested lands, or make sure that you know that you're buying for a fair price from a farmer, to make sure that that farmer is able to make also a healthier choices in terms of what kind of fertilizers they use. Whenever we cut down on cost so much, then compromises start to happen. So we have to be able to make sure that we don't compromise on the safety of our planet. We don't compromise on the safety of our children. Me as a mother now, whenever I think about the planet, when I was younger, I was thinking like, okay, and here we go, tree huggers telling me what to do and how to act in this world. But to be honest, now that I'm a mother and I look at my children, I want to make sure that they have a planet and they have a home where they can see their children, where their children can have grandchildren, and where our legacy gets to continue, not as a disappointment or as a negative impact into the environment, but as a positive time where our nation and our people get to come together and make sure that we do something positive that our children can have a better living for. So I hope this was interesting for you. And this is the end of my presentation. So I'll be happy to take any questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mary, for that impactful presentation. Thank you for letting us know some of the sustainability methods that have been practiced in different African countries. Thank you so much. We received a couple of questions during the course of your presentation, and just take a few of them and probably maybe one of them. The first, because of our time, the first one is coming from Sengodo Dominic. He or she asked, he said, "Thank you, Mary. Is your impact up to Ghana too? What programs have you done in West Africa in general?" So maybe is joining in from Ghana, and then we want to know what have you done in Ghana and then some other West African countries. Over to you for your response, Mary.
Okay. So currently we have not been very much active in West Africa, but that's really an ambition that we would like to take and a challenge that we very much welcome. Like I said, we are a very small NGO and we're just starting to, let's say, spread our wings and work. So basically, we have not done anything specifically in West Africa. We would love to do something also in West Africa. Maybe I think the only thing that I can actually mention that could potentially work is the Grand African Green Up documentary will be launching in more than 53 countries around Africa on Nat Geo. So in terms of creating awareness, and now with the UN Decade, we're also doing a lot of communication in West Africa. So with that said, in terms of communication, we are starting to spread in West Africa, but in terms of actually having on-the-ground projects that are currently effective, we still have not reached that point. But I really, really do hope that we get to do that very soon.
Wow, that's a good one. Thank you for that response. We also received some messages, but most of them are comments and their recommendations. They are thanking our presenters for those insightful sessions. And then some of the messages that we also received were thanking Richflood for organizing this event, and they asked for more of it. more of it. All right, thank you so much, our presenters, Matthias. Thank you for that impactful one. Mary, thank you also. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you with us again. And because of our time is fast spent. We are running behind schedule because this program is scheduled for 1 hour, and our 1 hour is up now. On behalf of Richflood International Limited, the organizer of this event, I want to say thank you to our participants for attending this morning session. We are confident that your understanding of sustainable procurement and the circular economy has been broadened, especially as Mary has shared with us how it is being done in other African countries. And we look forward to having you join us at 3 p.m. At 3 p.m. this afternoon for the afternoon session of this workshop. Please, should you have further questions and contributions, kindly forward them to info@richflood.com. info@richflood.com. And if you miss any session of these morning presentations, any sessions of our presenters, the recordings of this presentation will be made available on our YouTube channel, Richflood YouTube channel. Kindly go there and watch it. And before we finally draw the curtain for this morning session, can we all please put on our camera so that we can take a group photograph of this morning session. We can put on our group photograph, our camera, so that we can take a group photograph of this morning session. And as we do that, I want to inform us that this kind of workshop will also happen next month. It will happen next month. It's a monthly workshop, and the next month workshop will be holding on the 17th of June, 2021, where we will be talking about emission inventories, what corporations need to know